Good Friday afternoon and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dorzinski, Dan Lucero here with you for 3 hours to wrap up your work week. And we appreciate you being along for the ride on this Feel Good Friday afternoon. It is not a Red Friday, though, because the Kansas City Chiefs are not playing this weekend. In fact, they're not even playing in the Pro Bowl games because you don't get to do that when you go to the Super Bowl. Probably for the best. Did you watch any of the Pro Bowl games yesterday?
It was on in the background when I turned the television on at first.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing dodgeball, I believe.
Yeah.
And it really says something, and I don't know that it's entirely flattering, that ESPN chose to preempt a top 10 matchup in women's college basketball last night for the final 15 minutes or however long it was of NFL players playing dodgeball.
It's not great.
Like I said, I don't know what it says, but it feels like it's not flattering.
No.
I don't know who it doesn't flatter or who it doesn't flatter more, whether it's ESPN or their audience or what ESPN thinks of their audience. But two top 10 Big Ten teams, including maybe the best player in women's college basketball, Caitlin Clark, you can wait. We got to watch George Kittle get these dodgeballs off.
She put up 42 points, by the way, against the top 10 team.
She's awesome.
The AFC is cruising, by the way. They're up 3-1 in events. They give them 3 points for a win, 0 points for a loss. Why not just one? Okay, it doesn't matter.
This is way more than I wanted to discuss the Pro Bowl games on today's program.
See, but this is where we are in the sports calendar. Like, there's no real football this weekend. We do have college basketball. We'll get to plenty of that. But we are not all that far from, like, doomsday in the sports radio calendar when... All right,
when
we got the Royals.
There ain't no more football to talk about, and we got to look at that Royals 40-man roster and start coming up with some topics.
How about KU, it can be K-State, doesn't really matter. How about a Final Four run?
Please.
Let's get to that national championship game.
Please.
Is there a barnstorming tour we can cover right after, maybe? Oh, my gosh. We'll get to the draft eventually, and I don't mean to put down the Royals entirely. They had big news today. Powder blue uniforms are back.
Yes.
That's cool.
I'm hype. I love the powder blue.
But we are going to we're going to get you all the college basketball talk, NFL as well, coming up over the course of the next 3 hours. We're going to take a look not at the rosters specifically for the Chiefs and Eagles here to lead things off, but how they came to be and which is more impressive. The building of which roster is more impressive. We're going to get to that here in just a moment. Also this hour, we'll talk to Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. It's our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider. We'll talk to Matt about all things Super Bowl, see how excited he is to take a trip down to the desert coming up in just over a week's time. We've also got to look ahead to KU versus Iowa State, K-State versus Texas coming up this weekend. A couple of major games on the Big 12 slate. KU is a road dog taking on Iowa State this week. An Iowa State team that got run off the floor against Missouri and then had an all-time disaster of a loss against Texas Tech. KU's won 2 in a row. KU's an underdog? That's just Big 12 basketball, maybe.
It's Hilton Coliseum.
Yeah.
I think our friends in the desert are betting on a little Hilton magic because the Iowa State results have been pretty tragic when they've been outside of Ames.
Nice.
Thank you.
Yeah,
worked hard on that one.
That is absolutely the case. And the other game, K-State versus Texas, the entire Big 12 is rooting for K-State. Not just because it's Texas in general, but because a loss for Texas means we might have, KU and Iowa State play. We could have a 4-way first-place tie this weekend.
Yeah.
That would be phenomenal. That would be awesome. So the entire world rooting for K-State in their matchup with Texas. We'll preview both of those games, take a look at some of the other news and notes from around the college basketball world later on today. We'll find our weekly champion in What Is Wrong With You. We've got some Change My Mind coming up this hour, 580 Sports Talk headlines, and so much more over the next 3 hours. We would love for you to be a part of the show here on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429, and you can chime in the YouTube comment section as well. Our channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. Find us on YouTube. If you have not subscribed yet, go do it. Don't walk, run. go hit that subscribe button on YouTube. You'll get all of our videos, live streams, etc., all right on your YouTube homepage. That's Sports on 580 WIBW. And we should also note that we might be done just before the top of the 6 o'clock hour today because we've got the 580 Preps High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader from the House of Blues, the Washburn Rural Activity Center at Washburn Rural High School, as the Junior Blues take on the Emporia Spartans in a girls-boys doubleheader. Pregame is scheduled for 5:45. Tip-off for Game 1 at 6 o'clock. The boys' game will follow right after that, right around 7:30, and you can hear all the action right here on 580 WIBW coming up later on this evening. But let's get to the Super Bowl thoughts for the day. And an interesting piece I saw earlier on this week from Stephen Ruiz at The Ringer. I really like Stephen Ruiz as an NFL writer. I think he does a really good job of breaking things down in a way that they're easy to understand. And the headline of this piece is Chiefs-Eagles shows 2 ways to build a modern NFL team. Which one will win out? And I think that's pretty obvious. You've got the Chiefs, who have already been through the win a Super Bowl on the quarterback's rookie contract thing. Now they're back with a quarterback on a massive $500 million contract.
And one who's still underpaid on said contract.
Absolutely true. On the other side, for the Eagles, you've got the quarterback on the rookie deal. And because you're not paying Jalen Hurts all that much money, you can afford to keep the really talented pieces on the offensive line. You could afford to go not just, make sure you maintain the good players already on your defensive front, but you could go get Hassan Reddick. You could add Ndamukong Suh off the street midseason. You could trade for Robert Quinn and fit all of those contracts under the salary cap. That means you can go out and trade for A.J. Brown and give him 4 years, $100 million against the cap. They've drafted Devonta Smith. That's your number 2 offensive weapon, also on the cheap deal. So 2 of your best players, super cheap contracts when they deserve far more based on the quality of players they are. And then you can spend all that extra money to go build up the rest of the roster. I have a question for you, and I think I probably know the answer here, but the Eagles situation in particular makes it more unique, I think. It makes it a little bit of a tougher discussion. Is it more impressive that the Chiefs have gotten back to this point with Patrick Mahomes on the mega deal, with the roster they have around him? It's not a bad roster. It's a top 10 roster in the NFL, all things considered, I think, given how well the rookies have played and stepped up into their roles. But it's also not the best roster in the league. I think that's very obvious. Is it more impressive that the Chiefs are back with that roster and that quarterback on that contract? Or is it more impressive for the Eagles to have built this super mega team with their quarterback on a rookie contract? If I left the question there, you'd say, well, Brendan, duh, it's the Chiefs and what they've done. But the Eagles have done the same thing with a tear-down last place finish in the middle, all within the span of 6 years. They had one of the best rosters in the NFL, won a Super Bowl, within a couple years, tore it all the way down, had 4 wins, got Doug Peterson fired. And then other things also got Doug Peterson fired, to be fair. And then within 2 more years, they're back in the Super Bowl with the best team in the NFC and the favorite to get to the Super Bowl out of the NFC for the entire year. Wire to wire, they were the number 1 favorite out of the NFC. So which of those 2 things to you is more impressive? And again, knowing that for the Eagles, they've done it twice in a short period of time, and I think that's where the intrigue comes in.
They are both impressive in their own way, but I'm on record here saying that when you have the quarterback on the rookie contract, you're playing the game on easy mode because you can go out and make the supplemental additions to your team that paying a quarterback 40, 50 million a year just isn't going to allow you to do, or has not allowed you to do. It's a discussion for the offseason, but it'll be fascinating to see what the increase in the salary cap is going to mean for teams who are either already paying their quarterback or are about to have to pay their quarterback. But the Eagles now have done this twice, because who was the starting quarterback the first time they did this?
It was Carson Wentz,
the number 2 overall pick in the draft, right?
From just 1 year prior.
Yes. And so he's on the rookie deal. So the roster assembled around him. And that was the thing about that Eagles team is 1 through 53, nobody was touching them. 1 through 53, They were in such good shape. They were so talented that even when they lost their quarterback, Carson Wentz, who had been playing at an MVP level that season, he was going to win it. Like, he was going to win the MVP that year. They ripped up his knee I want to say it was against the Rams pretty late in the season, 13th or the 14th game of the season. But even without him playing at that level, they could still make it shake with career backup Nick Foles. And they could still win a Super Bowl and beat the Patriots dynasty with Nick Foles as the quarterback. That's how good roster slots 3 through 53 were. And then when they tore it all down, they got to start over again and do so with Jalen Hurts. Now, there is an element of good fortune here that Hurts has become this guy, but also there's an element of tremendous player development, tremendous scouting, really good coaching. But they have managed, once again, to end up in a spot where the quarterback is on the rookie deal. And that's easy mode in the NFL. It really, really is. Because once you have to pay the quarterback, you have to make harder decisions. The other thing that makes it, I guess, a little easier for the Eagles is there's the price you pay after a Super Bowl as well. After you win or when you've had a run of success, those complimentary guys that helped you win, they go get bigger contracts from elsewhere. It's not just your first round picks, right? It's the guys that might have been depth signings, guys who might have been ring chasing with you, guys who might have been on prove it contracts. Great example of this for the Chiefs is Emmanuel Ogbah, right?
Yeah.
Like Emmanuel Ogbah was a luxury piece for them when they won the Super Bowl. Now he's making good money and playing at a high level somewhere else, but you don't have a player like that as a rotational defensive end after you've won a championship with that player, because then that player proves themselves and then they go get a bigger deal somewhere else. So that's where the Chiefs are playing the game on hard mode, right? It's not just that they've paid the quarterback. It's that they've already won and they've had their roster plundered by other teams who want what the Chiefs have, who look at a Chiefs depth piece, like a late round pick, like a Charvarius Ward, and then go give him number one cornerback money that the Chiefs can't do. Or take a 5th round pick like Tyreek Hill and make him one of the highest paid wide receivers in the NFL, like Miami has done. The Chiefs have survived that and continue to thrive. That to me is harder. That to me is more impressive.
The thing that winning the Super Bowl or getting to the Super Bowl with a veteran quarterback on a high-paid contract, the thing that changes more than anything else, I think, in terms of roster construction, is you have far less opportunity to spend draft picks on building toward the future, because that's what the draft is. You're building your roster for the future, but you also have to take more into consideration what you're doing immediately. Now, if you ask the Chiefs and got a truly bare it all honest answer, I don't expect Brett Veach or Brant Tillis or Chris Shea or any of the guys in the front office. Or Andy Reid even. None of them would tell you, oh yeah, we knew we were going to get, 4 starters out of this group. It's Pacheco, Karlaftis, Watson, William. They wouldn't have said we're going to get that many starters out of this group right away. Long term, we would love to get there. Statistically, probability speaking, it likely won't happen, but we would love to get that over the course of time, over the course of their first contracts across the whole group. The Chiefs have gotten that in the first year. All those guys I mentioned are either starting or playing starting type snaps for this team right now. The Eagles, on the flip side, they have obviously drafted well because a lot of these guys are homegrown, especially their younger guys. Devontae Smith, he was a draft pick. Jalen Hurts.
All those running backs.
He was a draft pick. Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, all their own guys. Scott's a little different. I think he's on a second contract, but it's super cheap. So they've built with their own guys. Avonte Maddox is another homegrown guy as well. But you don't always need those picks to hit right away. Like this year, for example, if the Chiefs didn't hit on the cornerbacks nearly as well. McDuffie, that's the one I forgot. McDuffie, sure, nailed on starter. Jalen Watson, though, he's a developmental project piece. It's a 7th round pick. No one would fault anyone for that at that point. But what does the secondary look like? Joshua Williams, same thing. He was a 4th round pick, but he came from a D2 school. There's obviously a leap from playing Division II to 1 year later playing in the NFL for a team that's always getting the opponent's best chance. No one would have faulted them for that, but your ceiling drops a little bit because you you don't have as much certainty at any of those positions. So sort of continuing the conversation we had yesterday with how impressive the rookies have been overall for the Chiefs this year, it's really been imperative to be this good that you draft those guys and have immediate impact pieces. The Eagles this year, going into this year, they could have drafted a couple of guys who were true project long-term pieces, and it wouldn't have really hampered their ability to build a Super Bowl roster. The Chiefs don't have that kind of benefit, so it puts more pressure on the front office to hit on instant impact guys and on the coaching staff to develop rapidly to build a contending roster, as opposed to, we need a number one receiver. Get me A.J. Brown.
Right.
Okay, good. We'll go get A.J. Brown. We need help in the secondary. This was a year ago when they got Slay, but go get Darius Slay. Okay, we'll go get Darius Slay. We don't need to wait for a day 3 pick to develop. We can just go get that guy. We'll spend picks to go get that guy. The Chiefs don't have that luxury, which is something the Eagles have had. It's exceptionally impressive what the Eagles have done, but I don't think you can really undersell or oversell, I guess I should say, how important it is to manage your money very meticulously and particularly when you've got the quarterback on the mega contract. You also bring up the salary cap going up, what is it, almost $20 million?
Something like that.
And how big of a deal that is. The interesting thing is that actually helps a team like the Chiefs more than it would help a team, give me a random team that's got tons of cap space. The Bears already have $100 million in cap space before that. Mm-hmm. But who did I just see yesterday has $38 million in cap space? The Eagles have 30-something million in cap space next year because they still got so many young guys or older veterans who might not be making quite as much. The Kelseys, the Barnetts, players like that. The salary cap jump helps the Chiefs more than it does anyone because, you've already got your core. You've got you've got the rookie core, McDuffie, Karlaftis, Moore, Pacheco, all those guys, Watson, Williams, all those guys. You've got your established main core. Mahomes is under contract. Kelsey is still under contract for a little bit. Chris Jones has one more year under contract. I imagine they'll probably renegotiate and get him locked down with the kind of year he's had. You've got both of those quote-unquote cores locked up. You had extra $15 to $20 million in the mix. You know what you can do then? You can bring back Juju and go find a true number one, so to speak, wide receiver. Not that they need it. Not that they're out there in free agency this year either. But you can go find that. If it doesn't work out with Orlando Brown, you can go make a move to get another left tackle. Or hell, you just franchise tag him again.
Yeah.
And there you go. There's your left tackle again. And you can make that work with that flexibility. The Chiefs are at the same time in a spot where they deserve praise for the way they've built to now, and also in a spot where they're looking pretty good going forward because they're going to have more flexibility than you would think after this Super Bowl run.
Yeah, especially compared to other teams that are going to have to give their quarterbacks. I mean, gosh, what's Burrow going to get? What kind of money is he going to get that resets the market? What is Lamar Jackson's new deal end up looking like? He's a former MVP. What is his deal going to look like? And that's going to make Mahomes' contract look, by comparison, more reasonable, more team friendly. That's just the way those things tend to evolve. Like when you get the money that makes you the highest paid, then the next guy gets money that's more than you, and so on and so forth. And so the Chiefs will find themselves in a better position than some of those teams that have to pay their quarterbacks moving forward, because when they paid Mahomes and what they ended up paying Mahomes and what the salary constraints were when Mahomes got paid. And they'll redo his deal at some point, I'm sure, and give him something that's commiserate with what the top earning quarterbacks are making at that time. But It does give, like you said, a little bit more flexibility for the Chiefs moving forward. The other thing, just to go back to your point about the Chiefs rookie class and what they needed from their rookie class this year. And if they don't get the upward improvement, the steady, like upward on the graph improvement from Watson and Williams and Karlaftis and Cook, if they don't get that, they are not playing 2 Sundays from now. The Eagles rookie class this year, they traded some picks for A.J. Brown. So, like, if you consider A.J. Brown part of the 2022 draft, obviously he's made a very big impact for them. But Jordan Davis is a rotational defensive tackle who actually lost snaps after his injury because they had to fortify the front line. That's when they brought in Sue and they brought in Linval Joseph. So Jordan Davis's share of the snaps has actually kind of decreased as the year has gone on, but he was never more than a 30-40% of the defensive snaps per game guy at defensive tackle anyway. Cam Jurgens is a backup. Kobe Dean is a special teams guy. Grant Calcaterra is a backup. Kyron Johnson's a special teams guy. Like, that's what they've gotten from their rookies this year.
Mm-hmm.
So by comparison, what the Chiefs have gotten has been extremely significant. But again, like you said, the Eagles not having to pay their quarterback a huge chunk of change allows them the flexibility to say, we're going to trade these picks. We're going to go get A.J. Brown. We're going to help our quarterback. The Chiefs, on the flip side, traded away their quarterback's best weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? He just went out and won a second MVP. That's because he's Mahomes. And nobody else is.
To that point, we're going to get to more of the Eagles defense coming up next week. We'll get to more game breakdown next week, of course, as it actually finally ends up being Super Bowl week. Do you know what quarterback this year had the best passer rating against the Philadelphia Eagles?
Was it Heineke?
It was not Heineke.
Okay.
It is a bit of a trick question. This quarterback did not start the game.
I don't know.
Jordan Love.
Ah, jeez.
But to that point, you brought this up, what was it, yesterday or on Wednesday's show? Look at who the Eagles have played this year.
Yeah,
Look at what this quarterback in Patrick Mahomes has done this year, what he has done recently. And once he gets closer to 100%, he won't be 100% for the game, but he'll be closer to it. Maybe, because when I first saw this was going to be the matchup and I first thought about it, I thought, man, I kind of am leaning with the Eagles, kind of. But the more I think about it, man, as long as the Chiefs have some amount of weaponry, to throw to, this is going to be a totally new look for the Eagles. I like those Eagles secondary players. I like Avonte Maddox. I love Darius Slay.
Slay and James Bradbury, I stand by this. I think that's as good a 1-2 punch at cornerback as any team has in the league. And if they get Avonte Maddox back, he was in a walking boot today at practice, didn't go.
That's big.
If they have him back, then they're really, really solid 1 through 3. But yeah, the best quarterbacks that the Philadelphia Eagles have played this year are, in some order, Aaron Rodgers, Dak Prescott, Jared Goff. Those are the 3 best quarterbacks they played against this year.
Good for Jared Goff. What a guy.
I put him above Cousins, but other than that, yeah, beyond that, it is a really, just look at their schedule and tell me who they played that was good at quarterback. And you're not going to get to a guy who's in the same stratosphere as the MVP. You're just not. That's the challenge. And that should be. That's why this is so fascinating as a Super Bowl matchup, because I think you can rightly say that the Chiefs haven't faced anybody like the Eagles, haven't faced a team with a defensive front that's as diverse and as multifaceted as the Eagles, haven't faced anybody who can run the ball like the Eagles, but the Eagles haven't faced anything like Patrick Mahomes.
I think both things can be true. The Eagles are really, really, really good, and they also benefited from a really bad year in the NFC. I think those can both be completely fair at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can only play who they tell you to show up and play. It's not their fault that the NFC was down this year, or that they didn't have to run a murderer's row of quarterbacks, or that they only had to beat Daniel Jones and Brock Purdy / Josh Johnson / broken Brock Purdy to advance to the Super Bowl. Like, that's not their fault. Nobody's blaming the Eagles for that, but it is something of a question mark coming into the game, as much of one as you can find when you've got 2 teams that are this good.
Coming up later on this hour, Matt Derrick is going to join us from ChiefsDigest.com for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider. But first, coming up after this commercial break, we'll play Change My Mind on 580 Sports Talk. Before we get to Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider, we've got to get to a quick round of Change My Mind. Change my mind, Dan. It's time to get rid of sports all-star games.
No, can't do it. They're still fun. It's still a neat way to recognize the talents and the greatness of the generation of players. It's a neat way to be able to look back on their career and kind of gauge their level of greatness, their level of relevance amongst their peers in their time when it comes to Hall of Fame debates. And I think in the proper spirit, they can be entertaining to watch. And I think that we've seen the NHL and the NBA move in a direction where their all-star games are more about just being entertaining than simulating a real version of the sport. And I think that's for the best. And I think now we have kind of that with the NFL too. It's just big dudes goofing around. And I'm much better with that than trying to pretend it's a real football game with anything on the line.
See, my counter to that would be, though, the NFL has had to do everything possible to make it not real football. Just say this is the Pro Bowl team. Cool. We'll all get together and take a picture at the draft or something. There's just no point to it. The NHL All-Star Game is at 2:00 on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, it's kind of wild.
What's the point? Who is watching? What hockey fan is watching that? People got stuff going on. You got to be the diest of diehards to be watching that. The NBA one has gotten a little bit better, but it's still too gimmicky to me. The best one is still Major League Baseball because it's still treated like more of a celebration as opposed to, the NBA. It's gimmicky.
It's just a week for everybody to hang out and bring their friends and go clubbing for a weekend, which is why it's so wild that this year's is in Salt Lake City.
Also true. Hey, I had a good time in Salt Lake City. I'll say that. LeBron, you need some Rex? I got you. But then, I don't know. It just is the NBA is it's the Vine league. If Vine was that was the perfect social media for the NBA. Oh, look at dunk. Look at three. Oh, here's a clip here's Donovan Mitchell dissing Dylan Brooks in a press conference. And then it'll go viral, and that's all that 80% of the NBA fan base cares about anyway. That's kind of what it is. We have cable. We see all these dudes play each other all the time.
Yeah, that is kind of the argument against. The whole point of All-Star games in the first place was to get players together so you could watch them on television when you didn't get to see those guys on television, or certainly in baseball for the American League's best to play against the National League's best. When that didn't happen before. So they have lost a lot of their luster, it's true. But I still like the idea of players being honored as all-stars and getting to kick it with their fellow all-stars in a way that is fun.
I do like the Derby still. I do still enjoy the Derby.
We had a texter from the 785 and the Big O Tires text line said, get rid of them all but the home run Derby.
Okay, fine. Fine. You have swayed me. Mine changed.
Changed my mind. Every Major League Baseball team should have a powder blue alternate jersey.
Every one of them?
Every one of them. They were all wearing it in the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah.
The Rays even came up with a fake
throwback. I remember those. The ones that do exist are great.
Yeah.
The Cardinals will bring out the old powder blue once in a while.
None of them ever looked bad.
No.
Yeah, the Royals are the best of the best because they're just the cleanest with the white, but none of them that have ever been worn looked bad. Even when the White Sox had the red cursive Chicago on there, still look great. Powder blue is always a winner. Man, if the Rockies came out with some powder blue and purple, that would kill the game. Every team should wear powder blue.
See, does bringing back the cocaine era of baseball uniforms bring back cocaine in baseball in general?
No, I don't think so.
I'd be a little worried about that. No, but on a serious note, no, here's my counterpoint to that. Here is where I would counter the Padres wearing it or the Yankees wearing it or something. The NBA has this problem.
I didn't think about the Yankees. That's on me. Hand up.
The other night, the Lakers played the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. And instead of gold versus blue and orange, you know what it was? The Lakers wore all white. The Knicks wore black.
Yeah.
And the court was paint it.
Yeah, the NBA has gone too far. You turn on a game and you have no idea who's playing. That is a problem. The NBA needs to completely pump the brakes and say, look, you can do fun designs on the front all you want, but you have to have a primary team color. And that will be the color of your uniform. So
for the sake of get off my lawn and wanting the brands to be the brands, I'm going to have to say I can't go with that because I don't want to go too far toward that NBA stuff.
I would like to see how the Yankees would respond to being told they have to wear powder blue.
That would be pretty funny. That would be very funny. We'll take a timeout. Matt Derrick joins us next on 580 Sports Talk.
Get 6 of you miss a play like that.
His name is Matt.
Are you ready?
My name is Matt.
Let's go.
His name is Matt Derrick. He covers the Chiefs like a blanket for ChiefsDigest.com, and he joins us every Friday, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider. Go check out Matt's great work over at ChiefsDigest.com, and you can find him on Twitter as well, at Matt Derrick. Matt, do you have your flight plans ready for a trip to the desert?
Yeah, all set. Got everything lined up. So if you really know me, you know I am the worst morning person in the world. So the 5:10 a.m. direct flight to Phoenix Monday morning. Yeah, pray for me. Please pray for me.
Ooh, yeah, I can sympathize. I woke up today. I had something at 9 o'clock, and I thought, well, this is horrible. I wish I could sleep to any point beyond this. So no, I sympathize with you on that. Just how crazy is it, Matt, that this team that went 50 years as a franchise without an appearance in the Super Bowl is now going for the third time in 4 years? Can you put that into perspective, just truly how incredible this run has been so far for Kansas City?
I mean, it's truly remarkable. I mean, even thinking about it in, the sense that, I mean, there's 57 Super Bowls. I mean, and the Chiefs have now been in 7 AFC championship games. Okay, that's like more than 10% of the AFC championship games that there have ever been. They've hosted, almost 10% of the AFC championships of all time in just the last 5 years. And then you just think about how close they are. I mean, not only, did they have a fourth, Super Bowl appearance just on, the tip of their tongue, just 5 inches away, but then, they're also three Super Bowl trips and two overtime losses in an AFC Championship game. I mean, that's a ridiculous stretch, when you really think about it. And that's it.
What was or has been to this point the most remarkable thing about the Chiefs just in this postseason? Is it the fact that they were able to show some resilience, pick up the win against Cincinnati in the way they did? Is it something about the way they've been playing or one specific element, offense or defense? What has stood out the most about this particular run that has helped propel them with all this momentum going into the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, resiliency is probably the word that just jumps to my mind because, to think about it in the sense of what they've done. And I mean, other teams have gone through some difficulties too, but the Chiefs have done this with, their superstar quarterback missing a drive and having Chad Henne come in and fill in for him and still score a touchdown. I mean, the stage didn't fall down when Chad Henne comes in. They lose one of their key defensive players in L'Jarius Sneed very early in the AFC Championship game. That could have beset most teams, but this team, not only do they move on, they just, plug some rookies in there and keep the show going. It's amazing to me that, this team, it hasn't been an all, puppies and unicorns and rainbows or whatever it was that Patrick Mahomes said a few years ago and awesome and all that. They've had some difficulties, and yet nothing has fazed them. These young guys haven't blinked at all. Anybody who's had to step in has stepped in. I mean, they finished the AFC Championship game with 3 receivers on the field left. I mean, that to me, there have been plenty of opportunities in this postseason that this team could have said, you know what, it's not our year. I mean, there's just things aren't going for us. And they don't have that mentality. And certainly, I mean, I look at a team like the 49ers, they were kind of the same thing. I mean, look how many quarterbacks that they were down to and still make it to an AFC Championship game. But you know what? I mean, the Chiefs just are never out of anything. I mean, they absolutely aren't. And it's that resiliency and the fact that they never get blown out is always going to be amazing.
From the very positive and encouraging to maybe discouraging or concerning, obviously there's a lot that the Eagles do and have that are worrisome for this matchup if you're the Chiefs, but what in-house is the biggest worry going into this game? Is it anything about Patrick Mahomes' ankle? Is it something about so much youth on the field defensively? Is it the wide receiver injuries? Where's the biggest in-house concern for the Chiefs at the moment?
Yeah, right now, I mean, I do think it's the health. I mean, and Mahomes, I don't get a sense of a lot of concerns there. It's just, who is he going to be able to throw the ball to, and how do you make sure that everybody stays healthy through the nonsense that is to come? I mean, it doesn't seem physically grueling, but at the same time, what this team is going to go through over the next, I guess 9 days now, it's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of demands on your time. You're going to be tired next week. There's a lot of things going on. You're going to be standing at a riser, or you're going to be sitting at a table in uncomfortable chairs, and because there's a lot of requirements as far as media goes and all these things. You've got a lot of events that you have to go to. Navigating all of that and staying healthy is one thing, but then getting the guys that you need healthy is the other. I mean, this team, as resilient as they have been, I mean, I think they need L'Jarius Sneed to win a Super Bowl. I think they need Juju Smith-Schuster to win a Super Bowl. It's who can they win without? I mean, they've won without McCole Hardman, and you're probably not going to have him. But I think you need absolutely some help at receiver. I mean, you need Smith-Schuster healthy. You need Kadarius Toney, and I think Toney is much closer than Juju is. But you just want to make sure that, hey, yeah, Travis Kelce doesn't wake up with a back problem. You want to make sure that Patrick Mahomes doesn't have any setbacks with the ankle. You've got to just be on guard for everything, and you've got to take care of your bodies over the next week. Make sure that you're healthy. You make sure you're getting your rest. I mean, that's a bigger deal than you think during Super Bowl week.
Our guest is Matt Derrick. He is our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk and joins us every Friday to talk all things from the Chiefs Kingdom. You can find his work at ChiefsDigest.com, and you can find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, in what ways does this Chiefs team on the precipice of playing in a Super Bowl, in what ways does it feel similar? In what ways does it feel different from the last 2 times that the Chiefs were headed to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, I almost want to throw the last Super Bowl against the Buccaneers out because, that was during COVID and the pandemic, and there were so many oddities and restrictions and everything that I'm not sure there's any real comparison. I mean, I know Steve Spagnuolo was kind of addressing that and went back, and I mean, I think he was finding a lot more parallels with 19 than for this one than the last one against the Buccaneers. A lot more things you could learn from, and as a result, to me, I mean, that's why it's very tempting to think of this as a team with a lot of experience in the postseason and Super Bowls. But I think you almost really have to go back to 19 and think that anybody who played 20 as a young guy, as a rookie, has a little bit of experience, but not the full thing. This will be the full thing. So, how many Chiefs really do have that experience from 19 that they can bank to kind of get them through this week, I think is a big deal. I do see a lot of similarities, though, between this team and the way that it's operating now versus 19. I think the confidence level is very similar. I think that just the way they're playing at the end of the season is very similar. I think the defense getting confident at the end of the year, very similar. There's a good mix of veterans on this team and some hungry veterans on this team that I think is very similar. I get a lot more vibes from 19, I think, than I do from the 20 team.
In looking ahead to this matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles, do you think the Eagles are the best team the Chiefs have played this year? Because I think it's very clear that the Chiefs are the best team the Eagles have played. But do you consider the Eagles to be streets ahead of Cincinnati, or at least the version of Buffalo that the Chiefs got to see earlier in the season when Von Miller was still healthy?
I love streets ahead. Great line drop there. I think it's a legitimate question because I'll admit it, I'm an AFC snob this year. I just don't think that the NFC was very good. I think the Eagles were the best of the bunch. They're the best team, and I think they deserve to be here. So I'm not saying that, but I think if you had the Eagles playing in the AFC, are they the best team? I think the Bills as a whole are better. Maybe not right now. The Eagles are probably playing better football, but I think overall the Bills are a better team. I think the Bengals are a better team. Eagles are close. They've got a lot. I mean, I just think there's a couple of things that they're missing out on. But when you look at the numbers, like their sack numbers and their efficiency in the red zone and their rushing numbers, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like there is more competition in the AFC. There are better teams in the AFC. There's more quality in the AFC right now. Certainly, I think there's better quarterbacks in the AFC, and it makes a difference. So, yeah, and if you look at the postseason runs that these two teams have had, I don't know that there's a lot of comparison because as banged up as the 49ers were and the Giants were not exactly a world setting. I think the Jaguars right now are a better football team than the Giants are. I don't think it's real close. I think they have better quarterback play, and I don't think it's real close. To me, I don't know I don't know if the Eagles have truly experienced playoff football yet and the speed of playoff football, because what they got against the 49ers, that wasn't the same thing that the Chiefs had to face in the Bengals. I think the Chiefs are more road tested. That's why I think that the road that the Chiefs had to go through and the battles in the AFC are a big difference, because I just don't know if the Eagles are ready for it.
Just a couple more questions for Matt Derrick, our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt joins us every Friday, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour, to talk all things Chiefs. You can find his work at ChiefsDigest.com and follow him on Twitter as well at Matt Derrick. Matt, we've spent a lot of time on this program talking about the Chiefs rookies over the last couple of days and how big they've been, from Karlaftis up front. Pacheco is your starting running back. Sky Moore played big snaps against the Bengals. We know about that secondary and their youth, specifically when it comes to Jalen Watson, Trent McDuffie, etc. How big are those young guys, the rookies particularly, going to be in this matchup?
Big. I mean, half your special teams units for the most part are going to be rookies. So they're certainly going to be, playing key snaps right there. But absolutely, I mean, all over, especially with the injuries right now that the Chiefs are having, that you are right now in the lineup to absolutely be counting on some rookies in key spots. And it's easy to think about first round picks because, hey, George Karlaftis and Trent McDuffie, they've played big time football. They played in big conferences. They've had to play big matchups. So you feel like that they're well prepared for it. But then there's guys like Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson, who haven't been stars on their teams, and they're not at that point. But yet at the same time, they're asked to contribute right now in big roles. and smaller school guys like Sky Moore. I mean, I think that the one thing to me that stands out about this class, though, is that the Chiefs did a really, really good job as far as identifying character players who fit in with what they want to do. That seemed to be paramount over everything else. They drafted guys that have skills, but they also bypassed players who have skills. But what did they go for? They went for guys who, like Steve Spagnuolo was describing Brian Cook today, who are sponges. Guys who really, they love football, but they also get it. They get buying into the team concept. They get the responsibilities. They get the accountability. Those are huge factors. And there are guys that the Chiefs drafted whom I know that they bypassed because they didn't feel like they had that. Maybe they were better skilled players, but maybe they just didn't have the ability to buy in and didn't have the personality that would fit with this team. These guys all fit in, and that's remarkable to me.
One final question for you, Matt, before we let you go on this Friday afternoon, non-Super Bowl related, and we only have about a minute left here, but is it going to happen for Eric Bieniemy this year?
I don't know. I mean, it's really, you're talking about the only head coaching job that's still open is the Colts, and it's hard to tell what Jim Irsay is doing there other than putting on the biggest pageant show ever to prove that Jeff Saturday deserved the job. I don't know, but and certainly there's a couple of teams that are holding open their offensive coordinator jobs that certainly seem to be interested in me as well. I mean, is he going to end up as an offensive coordinator somewhere else? If he doesn't get hired or doesn't have any more other opportunities this season, going somewhere else to prove himself might be what he has to do. So, I mean, I wouldn't blame him for doing it. I mean, if that's what NFL owners are telling him right now, and at least sending the message that he hasn't done enough to prove himself, well, what else can he do in Kansas City to prove himself? So, I don't know. I mean, I don't get the sense that there's a head coaching job out there for him, but certainly there are some teams that would be willing to turn over their offense to him and give him a lot of power if he wants to leave the organization.
I know it's Andy Reid's offense, but man, that's crazy for a coordinator to go to 3 Super Bowls in 4 years and not get a head coaching job. That is absolutely unbelievable. I'm sure we'll talk more about that this offseason with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us every Friday for our Herman's Meat and Smokehouse Chiefs Insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, thank you as always for the time. Have a fun 5 a.m. flight coming up in the next couple days, and we'll talk to you right before kickoff next Friday.
I am looking forward to it. Talk to you from Arizona next week. Take care, everybody.
That is the one and only Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com, and that does it for the first hour of 580 Sports Talk. We're talking college hoops and what is wrong with you next hour here on the show.
Rural living.
4 o'clock hour on this Feel Good Friday coming your way. Appreciate you listening to 580 Sports Talk here on this February 3rd. Did you know it's Michael Jordan Day?
Because it's 2/3/23.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. I thought it was his birthday. And because I saw people around saying, oh, it's MJ Day. I said, oh, maybe it's his birthday or something. And no, it's just a play on what the date is.
It's the last time we'll have this day, though, for, 100 years?
Kendrick Perkins was on television today.
All right, I was going to bring this up. Yes, please.
Kendrick Perkins is on TV today. So the big NBA news of the day is that famously predictable Brooklyn Nets point guard Kyrie Irving has requested a trade from the Nets, who are playing well of late and have overcome a lot of things, including Kyrie Irving and his famous predictability. He demanded a trade today with the NBA trade deadline coming up in a week. And Kendrick Perkins on live television said, man, today's supposed to be MJ Day, and we're talking about Kyrie Irving. Like it's a holiday. Like it's Martin Luther King Day or something.
I love it. Kendrick Perkins is so bad at his job. So bad. I saw that clip earlier. It was very funny. It just momentarily here, this might come up in headlines later, but since I'm leaving halfway through this hour for high school hoops, what does Kyrie think he's accomplishing? And also, how dumb would a team have to be to give up anything of real value for him? Like, the Nets have coddled him like crazy for years now to try to protect him, frankly, from himself.
Mm-hmm.
And now, with less than a week to go before the trade deadline, he's demanding a trade.
He is a chaos agent with some extremely problematic views on the world, but he's got a nice handle and he can get buckets. And there are people out there in the NBA who don't actively dislike him, like, for example, LeBron James. So, yeah, somebody's going to trade for him. Somebody's going to pay the tax and go get Kyrie and then tell him, hey, man, would you mind like deleting your Instagram for the rest of the season? And
you go private, please.
Stop posting videos of John Stockton claiming things that are patently untrue. Please stop doing that. And Kyrie Irving's going to tell him no. And they're going to be like, well, okay, just go get us buckets and try to keep the embarrassment of us and the league to a bare minimum if you can.
Keep our team name out of your Instagram handle, please. All right, real quick. This time next week, where's Kyrie?
Lakers actually make a lot of sense.
Dallas.
That would be more interesting.
Luka
be the best teammate Luka's ever had
by miles and miles. Also, Mark Cuban, for as politically progressive as he may be, he also just like totally brushed off the fact that some of his right-hand men in the Mavericks front office were like abusing women and harassing women in their offices for years.
That did happen.
So, yeah, I mean, if you're looking for someone who is going to turn a blind eye when it personally impacts him positively, it might be Mark Cuban.
Look, those teams in the West can do whatever they want. Kyrie Irving, they can go get Julius Irving. It doesn't matter. Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets are walking away with the West. You heard it here first.
They're killing it right now, man.
4-game lead on Memphis.
That's very impressive. Coming up in this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Friday afternoon, a lot of college basketball to get to. KU versus Iowa State, K-State versus Texas, both coming up this weekend. We'll preview those games here in a minute. We've also got What Is Wrong With You. We'll find our weekly champion for the first week of February, and we'll get to some other Big 12 and college basketball notes later on. Bracketology update from Joey Brackets. Has KU and K-State going to the same location the first weekend of the tournament? I don't see it happening, but it would be pretty wild if it did end up happening. So we'll get to that later on in the hour. Of course, you're welcome to be a part of the show on the Big O Tires text line. You know the number, 785-272-9429. And the comment section on YouTube is open as well. Sports on 580 WIBW is the name of the YouTube channel. Let's start with K-State versus Texas. That's the game of the week in the Big 12 because Texas is on top. K-State is only one game back. This is a massive game, and it's the kind of game I think that this is what the Big 12's bread and butter is, right? Huge matchup the first time. Now you get the rematch, and this is a big deal. It'd be a little bit different if the rematch was in Austin, like if K-State had put up 116 on Texas at home in Manhattan, then this game was in Austin. I think there'd be another little bit of intrigue added to it. But it's hard to win at home. It's hard to win on the road in the Big 12. So now we get the rematch. We get two teams near the top of the AP poll going head-to-head, first place in the Big 12 on the line. This is massive for Texas because they want to win to make sure they stay atop the standings and create separation from however many teams they can.
Mm-hmm.
And they will be able to create some separation because from at least a couple teams, because let's say Texas wins, just hypothetically. They would then go up 2 games on K-State, and they would be 2 games up on either KU or Iowa State.
Right. And potentially 2 games up on TCU, who's got to go to Oklahoma State without Mike Miles.
Hugely significant game there. God, that sucks. Every time that comes up, it sucks so bad.
It is a bummer.
He's so much fun to watch. So it's huge for Texas in that regard. It's also huge for K-State, A, because you want to draw level with Texas and be right there in the thick of it at the top of the Big 12. And also, alternately, you don't want to go 2 games back because it is hard to win games in this league. You're going to lose games. So is everyone else. It is hard to make up ground in this conference, especially when everyone is so congested like this. So it's a huge game going both directions. I don't imagine 219 points will be scored the second time like it was the first time.
Yeah, if that's the point total you're offering me, I'm going to hammer the under.
But I do think K-State's got a chance to win here. And I think one big reason why is they have done a great job of showing resilience this year, bouncing back from losses, from the TCU loss, from the Iowa State loss. Can they do it again after the KU loss? I think they can. Texas is good, obviously. I do think K-State has that juice, and I think being at home will help in that regard.
Yeah, I think being home is a big advantage here. You know, the last 2 home games, or 2 of the last 3, I guess I should say, KU and Florida. I've been to both of those. I didn't make it to the Texas Tech game, but I was at the KU game and I was at the Florida game. And the KU atmosphere was, it was feral in that building. It was just an incredible atmosphere. It was loud. And the atmosphere against Florida, it was similarly loud, but it felt like a party. Like it felt like a good time in there. And part of it was K-State was in control of that game from start to finish. But it felt a little less menacing and a little more like ownership. Like, this is our house and we're having a party. We're having a party at our house. I expect something in between in terms of the atmosphere at Bramlage Coliseum on Saturday, where it is the chance to have a party type atmosphere if they can win this game and they can get back on level terms at the top of the conference. But also, it's Texas. And you know that Kansas State wants this one. Like every conference member wants to beat Texas and Oklahoma right now. It's a little something extra in those games. K-State has been so good at home. They feed off of their crowds. They feed off of the opportunities to get out and transition. That's what they're going to have to do. I don't think they're going to shoot whatever it was, 50, 60% from 3 that they did against Texas the first time around. They're going to have to create turnovers. They're going to have to run. They're going to have to value the basketball better. They're going to have to sharpen some things up on defense against a Texas team that is playing really well on offense of late. But Texas has lost 2 of their last 3 games on the road, including a loss to Tennessee where they were never really competitive, and a loss to Iowa State back on January 17th, where they lost that game by 9 and were never, didn't really threaten to make a big run in that game. So I think Kansas State's home court edge is the telling factor in this one. These are 2 teams that can really fill it when things are going well, but I expect that Kansas State will be able to throw some big punches, withstand whatever Texas makes as far as a run, and I think that they win a very close, very hard-fought game at Bramlage Coliseum.
What do you make of this Texas team's long-term outlook? Like, I know Rodney Terry is not as good of a coach as Chris Beard. He's also apparently a better person than Chris Beard, but
low bar. Yeah,
very low bar. That change at head coach obviously changed their trajectory. Now, they're still a great team. They're still a top 10 caliber team. They're number 10 in the KenPom right now. They're atop the Big 12 standings. They are going to be good. What is their trajectory, though? Like, are they good enough to make a Final Four run? Are they good enough that you would be comfortable saying, yeah, I believe they can win the league? I know right now, Kellis Robinette tweeted this out the other day. Right now, the advanced metrics, if you will, project Texas to hold on to win the league. They gave them about a 21% chance to win it outright. close to a 40% chance to win at least a share of it. Do you think that, just based on feels about right?
I don't know, because this Texas team is so guard dependent. Like, they don't get a lot from their bigs. It's about Carr and Tyrese Hunter and Teddy Allen and Sir'Jabari Rice off the bench. Like, if it's not them, like Dylan Dessou is not going to have a podium game, probably. Like, that's just not. They are so guard dependent.
Christian Bishop's had a down year.
Yeah. Well, I thought Christian Bishop would contribute more than he has, and they haven't really gotten him going. But they're really guard dependent for me, which means they're really shooting dependent, and they're going to be susceptible to some games where, you know, teams close out on them and run them off the 3-point line, and they have trouble making some of the mid-range, some of the pull-up stuff that Carr likes or that Sir'Jabari Rice likes off the bench. So for me, no, I think there's going to be a shared Big 12 title, but I would be surprised if Texas is one of the teams with a share at the end of the year.
I kind of agree with you. They're good.
Yeah, it's not like we think. I think there are a bunch of bums that are going to go 2-7 in the second half of the conference schedule. But I do wonder about, like, when they have to, because their schedule's so brutal the rest of the way, right? We've talked about what they still have left. They go to Bramlage, then they go to Allen. They got to go to Lubbock. They've got to go to Baylor. They've got to go to TCU. They play Kansas twice. Like, there are no off nights in the conference anyway, but I think they easily have the toughest schedule of the final 9, the back 9 in the Big 12 this year, even if it's only because they have to play Kansas twice.
I imagine they're probably staying nearby on Saturday and
it's
Sunday.
Big Monday, not Super Tuesday. So yeah, it's a Monday night at Allen. So I would imagine you're right.
Which is a benefit for Texas, really, that they play at K-State, then at KU. Because if you had to make that trip on the short turnaround to Allen Fieldhouse, yikes, that's tough.
So yeah, I think that schedule is going to throw some curveballs at them, and we'll see how Rodney Terry handles them as a coach, because CJ Moore laid it out that he had a lot of talent at UTEP last year. He had a player by the name of Sule Boom, which is a very hard name to forget, who might be the best transfer in the country this year, what he's done at Xavier and how he's made Xavier into a Big East contender. They had some like real legit talent at UTEP, and it was a 500 basketball team.
Yeah.
So at some point, does that catch up with them? Does Rodney Terry being their head coach instead of Chris Beard, does that catch up with them in the second half as teams have seen them and can adjust to them playing them a second time? That's a hesitation for me as well.
I would say right now, Texas is number 3 for me in the Big 12. I'd put KU, K-State, Texas in that order. Full strength, though, I'd move them to 4th. I'd put TCU above Texas.
I would too.
But as long as Mike Miles is out, I don't think you can fairly put TCU there. They might still win some games, and hopefully he's back sooner rather than later. I don't think you can justly put them in that spot as long as they don't have Miles. So Texas, almost by default, I would still keep in the top 3, but you give me every team full strength, I'd say no. I do not think they will be one of the teams sharing the title.
I know they just beat Baylor at home, but I think Baylor's going to get them at the Farrell Center in the rematch, and I might tap Baylor to have a better record than Texas in the second half of the season.
I could see it. I absolutely could see that. Again, part of it is pedigree too, right? Like,
yeah, like we give Baylor the benefit of the doubt, right? They just won a national title not that long ago. We give them a little bit more benefit of the doubt than we do Texas, because what have they done to earn that benefit of the doubt as a program? We never really got to see what it looked like under Chris Beard. We had 1 year of it, and that was it.
And that, same with KU. Hey, big matchup, end of the season, title share on the line. Who are you going to trust, even if the game's in Austin? Well, I'm going to trust Bill Self and Jalen Wilson over anyone else that Texas can offer me. On the KU side of things, Jayhawks take on Iowa State coming up. Early tip on Saturday, 11 a.m. tip. That game up at Hilton Coliseum. Before we break down this game, by the way, did you read CJ Moore's feature today at The Athletic about KJ Adams and his mom?
I did.
I read that this morning, and I got teary-eyed reading it. It is very powerful. It is a story that I had no idea about.
Yeah, I didn't either. Yeah,
I did not know one bit. We'll talk to CJ about it coming up next week, because it is worth your time. It's at The Athletic. It's about KJ Adams, his relationship with his mom, some health issues with his mom, KJ's personal struggles growing up as well. It's a tremendous read. It's a very emotional story. And, I mean, if you're a KU fan, I'm sure you already have grown to really love KJ Adams this year as a basketball player. This takes it to another level. It cannot be recommended enough. I wish I knew it had been coming out. We would have talked to CJ about it yesterday, but we'll talk to him about it coming up next Thursday instead. KU versus Iowa State. Jayhawks won the first matchup at Allen Fieldhouse. Weekend game, 2-point win, 62-60. In fact, it was KJ Adams who had the game-winning bucket with just 11 seconds left in the contest. I think these are two teams that are not all the way there, but are each on the precipice of going on a run in opposite directions. KU, we know, is very good. They had that slump where no one was contributing on offense except for Jalen Wilson. The defensive effort, well, not effort, but the defensive quality was below standard. They weren't getting anything from their bench. They lose 3 in a row. Then they played Kentucky. They played their most complete game in 3 weeks against Kentucky to pick up the win. They win a second straight game going to K-State or hosting K-State, excuse me. And in both games, they got a whole joint team effort. 19 bench points, double-double by Kevin McCullough. Big night for DeJuan Harris in the win over K-State. Before that, it was, I think, 5 players, or at least 4, who got in double figures for KU in the win over Kentucky. That whole team effort, I think, getting that back together, getting Grady Dick off the schneid a little bit, Kevin McCullough rebounding from whatever was bothering him and now playing at a higher level. KU, it feels like, is on the precipice of breaking out and going on a big run late in the season, like you would expect from KU.
Right.
Iowa State, meanwhile, in its last 2 games, and as we mentioned earlier on, got trounced by Mizzou. There's nothing wrong with losing to Missouri, but they got run off the floor by Missouri. And then they had just a complete meltdown against Texas Tech. They forgot how to play basketball and get it up over half court in the second half. Really, the last 12 minutes against Texas Tech. Lost the game they had no business losing in overtime. It feels to me, given what we know about the recent history of Iowa State, that might be a turning point in the other direction, that if they don't get the ship righted right away, it might spiral and they may be out of contention for the Big 12 title in the very near future. So for me, my perspective on KU here, you've got to smell blood in the water and you go for the kill and you try to take them out early in this game.
Yeah, you'd better. You better be on your P's and Q's from minute one, because the flip side of this is it's a desperate spot for Iowa State, because you don't want to lose 3 in a row. You don't want to potentially fall 2 games out of first place in the conference. And you want to respond to what the last 2 efforts have been, because both of those games have been away from Hilton Coliseum. Iowa State has been awesome at Hilton this year. They've blown teams out at Hilton Coliseum this year. And it always is true about college basketball. When you're at home, you get more from your complementary players. So, like, Iowa State's Jaron Holmes, he didn't really do much against Kansas in the first meeting. 3 of 9 from the field. Caleb Grill was 1 of 8 from the field, 1 of 6 from behind the arc. Those 2 guys are going to have a little more in their bag, I think, for Kansas on Saturday. They might get Jazz Kunch back. That could be a big deal for them. He's an 8-6 guy, a bigger body between him and Oshunniyi. That's 2 big guys that maybe Iowa State can have a more pronounced post advantage with those 2 guys, and then Robert Jones coming off the bench. Those are things that are potential tipping points for Iowa State. But you also look at Kansas, and they were in control in the first half, and then they went in a funk, and they only took a 1-point lead into the locker room. They really only got 3 guys going in that game, Dick Wilson and KJ Adams. DeJuan Harris played 39 minutes, didn't score. McCullough was 0 for 5 from the 3-point arc. And like you said, the bench production the last couple of times out, including on the road at Kentucky, has gotten better for Kansas to the point where I think that you can see some production from whether it's Uday or Yesufu or Clements or whoever it ends up being off the bench. I think Kansas is the better team. They have more good players than Iowa State does. And all things being equal, the tangible stuff, Kansas should win this game. But there is an intangible edge for Iowa State in desperation mode, trying to avoid a 3-game skid and being at home, that make this one a more dangerous game for the Jayhawks than I think it otherwise would be.
Who's the most important player for KU right now outside of Jalen Wilson? Because we've made the argument this year that it's DeJuan Harris, and I think there's still a very good argument. He's kind of the you go, we go guy, that you need him to distribute. You need him to play well on the ball and score at least a bit. You don't need him to put up 18 a game, but you need him to score at least a bit. Kevin McCullough, his defense is absolutely massive, and you need him to score offensively because you can't just have that position on the floor you can't have your three not score at all. You need him to put up some points. Grady Dick's ability to stretch the floor, to spread out the offense, that quick release, obviously huge, and he's gotten so much better defensively. And then you've got KJ Adams, who on that short roll is one of the most efficient offensive options in the Big 12. We know Jalen Wilson's the best. Right now, who's number two? Most, not even best, but most important piece for KU's success.
I think it's DeJuan Harris. I think that the last couple of games you've seen how important it is for him to make a shot early and just how much that changes the dynamic of Kansas's offense. If you're thinking about having to guard DeJuan Harris, it opens everything else up for everybody else. You don't always think about having to guard him. But if he forces you to guard him, whether it's from deep or whether it's off the bounce, it just creates that much more space. And he's more effective as a playmaker in that space. Grady Dick is more efficient and able to either get a shot or find a driving lane in that space. Jalen Wilson is a better scorer in that space. KJ Adams can do more in that space. So for me, it comes back to DeJuan Harris. When he plays at a high level and when he offers a scoring threat, KU's as good as anybody in the country.
It's probably Harris. More and more, though, I'm thinking it might be Kevin McCullough. I think there's a real argument for him because on the defensive side of the ball, he is your best defender. Away from the ball, on the ball, he is your best defensive player. And the things he's able to do, generally, I have to go back and watch highlights, watch clips, watch tape to really get some of the defensive stuff away from the ball because it's hard to pick up on. You're watching the game, you're watching where the ball is being shot at the hoop, whatever. He is so incredibly valuable defensively, even when he's not playing well offensively. But I think we've seen these last three games when he's been playing better. Yeah, KU lost to Baylor, but they were in that game. They had a chance in that game until the very end. They beat Kentucky. They beat K-State. These very difficult games, these very difficult teams, closer games, more competitive games after he was able to start getting back in the swing of things. It's probably Harris, number two, but I think that gap is really, really, really close. All right, final predictions. K-State versus Texas. Who wins?
Cats close.
I think the Cats do as well. KU, Iowa State?
KU close.
Even though Iowa State's favored in this game?
Yeah, I still think KU wins.
Yeah, I think so too.
They got better players. Like if Iowa State wins, it's going to take something, I think, beyond the ordinary from somebody like, it's going to take like a 20-point effort from Holmes or Grill to make 8 threes again. And that could very well happen. But I think that would need to happen for Iowa State to be able to beat Kansas. I think Kansas has more good players.
I'm with you. We'll talk more college basketball later on this hour. Goodness gracious. It is a Friday after all. But what is wrong with you? That's coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. Time to find our weekly champion in What Is Wrong With You on 580 Sports Talk. Our current winner for the week, as submitted by my wife, Abby, along with listener Ryan, both sending me this story this week. We had the woman in the Chicago suburbs who embezzled $1.5 million worth of chicken wings from the school district she worked for.
I don't remember who it was. We didn't get to it in time in the segment, but somebody in the YouTube comments yesterday said, man, that's going to be an awesome Super Bowl party.
That's extremely funny. She did this for a year and a half.
2 years. Yeah, close to 2 years.
Incredible stuff.
So many wings.
2 news stories today. My story is going to take us to West Lafayette, Indiana, home of Purdue University. You can't proposition a woman for sex.
No.
You can't deal meth.
Also, no.
You certainly cannot do both at the same time and as the same guy. We meet Professor Sergei Masharet. That's probably incorrectly pronounced, but I'll Americanize it. Who was arrested after being accused of both dealing meth and propositioning women for sexual favors. According to the Lafayette Police Department, Masharet was arrested on Wednesday after a lengthy investigation into reports of a, quote, suspicious male approaching women. He faces charges of making an unlawful proposition, dealing methamphetamine, and possession of methamphetamine. Indiana code describes an unlawful proposition, by the way, as offering to pay someone money for sexual intercourse. He's listed as a professor of aeronautical and astronautical engineering who's been at Purdue since 2014.
So usually in What Is Wrong With You, we meet our contestants, so to speak, and we think, yeah, that guy's no rocket scientist. This is a rocket scientist.
A literal rocket scientist. He has been placed on leave and is currently barred from campus. Purdue is also fully cooperating with the investigation. The investigation began back in December after the department received several tips regarding incidents of a suspicious man approaching women. Police say these incidents were reported several times over a 2-month period. They eventually identified Masharet as the suspect and reportedly used a plainclothes officer to obtain information on Wednesday, which subsequently led to a traffic stop near the intersection of 18th and Union Streets, and that traffic stop led to Masharet's arrest. We don't have further details about the meth here, but again, you can't do either one, and you certainly can't do both.
No. And we have both old enough and smart enough to know better here.
You'd think.
Wow. That's something else.
What do you have for today?
For my story, we're going to Oakland, California, where a victim of a car burglary was inside his SUV as it was happening.
Oh.
Surveillance video shows a man getting out of a Cadillac, creeping up to the back of a Buick Envision SUV, popping the trunk open and stealing a backpack, and then getting back into the Cadillac, which drives off. The video then shows Tyson Wrench getting out of his rented Buick just seconds later. He was inside the SUV the whole time, parked in a lot off 98th Avenue near I-880, not far from Oakland International Airport. I'm in my car. I should be safe. And then you see him reach down and push that little button, Wrench said. Wrench assumed he had accidentally hit the trunk button on his key fob. I feel dumb because I'm oblivious, Wrench said. I'm on the phone. I'm looking down, distracted. In fact, it was several hours before he realized someone had taken his backpack with his laptop, passports, and documents inside.
Oh, no.
It's one thing to come out and find your car broken into and you're upset, Wrench said. It's another thing to be in your car and have it broken into. I mean, how can anyone feel safe anymore? In the parking lot, signs are posted anywhere warning people not to leave valuables in their car. Technically, Wrench said he did just that. I followed the rules and I still got robbed, he said. The story doesn't end there. On Monday, as KTVU, the Fox affiliate in Oakland, was recording surveillance video of the incident, an SUV pulled outside the same victim's Buick, parked almost exactly in the same spot, and someone got out and appeared to look in the SUV. A witness ran up to the suspect's vehicle, which then took off. It turns out the rental got broken into again. The San Francisco resident, Wrench, says he has no plans to park or even sit in a car in Oakland anytime soon.
I think a lot of people in San Francisco feel that same way about Oakland.
Yeah, they do.
I think that's pretty common feelings in that part of the country. Wow. How do you not notice?
Yeah, that the back door of your car is opening. Like my wife drives a Buick Envision. There's a sound. There's a beep when the back of the car opens. And also there's a draft and light
Yeah,
that
right?
enters the car in a way that is unnatural. You don't notice?
Oh, my God.
That is incredible obliviousness by this guy.
I'm not that oblivious. Goodness gracious. Do you have that winning today, or do you have our first story?
I'm going to go with the guy who got robbed while he's sitting in his own car. Like,
Yeah.
that's big time foul.
That is extremely dumb. Does that foul, F-O-U-L, beat the foul, F-O-W-L, theft from yesterday, our chicken wing embezzlement?
Nah, man. She embezzled $1.5 million worth of chicken wings. She was driving a district vehicle to the spot and picking up these chicken wings and just absconding with them.
11,000 boxes of them.
So many chicken wings.
That is our winner for the week in What Is Wrong With You, and advances on to our monthly tournament, our first weekly winner here in the month of February. With that, let's take a break. We'll come back. Got more college basketball to talk about on 580 Sports Talk.
.441 on 580 Sports Talk. It's a solo mission the rest of the way. Yours truly, Dan Lucero, hanging out with you for the remainder of the show and the remainder of the week. Brendan Dworzinski on his way to the House of Blues. Washburn Rural and Emporia. Centennial League basketball tonight, our 580 Preps Friday night game of the week. Coverage starting approximately 20 minutes before tip-off of the girls' game, which is scheduled for 6 o'clock. So we will likely be done with these proceedings around, I'd say 5:40, 5:45, barring overtime in the JV game. don't want to speak that into existence by any means, but you will hear High School Hoops tonight. Brendan Dworzinski and the coach, Larry Latimer, on the call. That's where Brendan is, so this is where I am, and I appreciate you hanging out with us and with me here on 580 Sports Talk. YouTube comment section is open. Big O Tires text line is open as well, 785-272-9429. We were discussing earlier this hour the Big 12 basketball matchups in state for tomorrow. Again, 11 o'clock tip between KU and Iowa State at Hilton Coliseum. That is an ESPN broadcast. Texas and Kansas State are on ESPN2 at 3 p.m. If you would like to listen to Wyatt Thompson and Stan Weber call that one, you can leave it locked right here. 580 WIBW, FM 104.9. Pregame coverage at 2 o'clock, leading to the tip-off from the Octagon at 3. Other Big 12 games this weekend. Texas Tech is at Baylor. That is the CBS broadcast. I'm sure CBS probably wishes it had picked a different game to broadcast in the Big 12 slate, although Baylor certainly no slouch. They beat Texas Tech by 7 in Lubbock earlier this year. Texas Tech obviously is coming off of their first Big 12 win of the year, their dramatic 23-point comeback over Iowa State on Tuesday night in Lubbock. Baylor has not shot the ball great of late, but they feel to me like they're just a little bit away from going on a run themselves. We talked about Kansas kind of feeling like that, like Kansas is primed to get on a roll with the way that they played in their last 2 times out, and the confidence that has reemerged in guys like DeJuan Harris and Kevin McCullough, and that it seemed to emerge out of the bench in the last 2 games against Kentucky and against Kansas State. Baylor is too talented to only be 5-4 in the league. They got too many dudes. Keontae George, LJ Cryer, Adam Flagler. That's a really good team. And they're ranked 11th in the country for a reason. I think they're going to have no problem with Texas Tech in Waco on Saturday. And that's a team that I know they've got a big mountain to climb in front of them. They've got obviously Texas at 7-2 and then a bunch of teams at 6-3. But it would not shock me in the least if Baylor got to the top of that mountain, even if they had to share space with another team or two at the top by the time this is all said and done. I mean, you look at Baylor's schedule the rest of the way, they do still have to make the Sunflower State road trips, which are no cakewalk. They still have to go to TCU. That game is in 8 days. Will Mike Miles play in it or not? But the home slate is really manageable. Tech, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Texas, and Iowa State. They could win all of those. That would give them 10 conference wins, and then they just have to find 2 road wins out of the 4 road games left, and the road slate again for them is TCU, Kansas, Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. But they can get to 12 conference wins, I think, and that might be enough. That really might. They go 7-2 the rest of the way in the league. I think they've got the talent to do that. I think that starts with a win over Texas Tech on Saturday. TCU at Oklahoma State. Again, not likely to see Mike Miles for the Horned Frogs. As a result, Oklahoma State enters this game as a favorite, a 2-point favorite over the 15th ranked team in the country. Oklahoma State playing some good ball. They've won back-to-back games, handled Oklahoma no problem in Norman on Wednesday night. Game was 71-61, but it was never really that close. Especially in the second half, but really early on. All 40 minutes, Oklahoma State was in control of that one. They're 9-2 at Gallagher-Iba this year. They have gotten better as this season has progressed, and I think TCU is going to struggle unless they can force a bunch of turnovers, but Oklahoma State will slow it down. They'll play in control. They've got some veteran guards. They've got the kind of size that can make TCU pay, especially as Eddie Lampkin's still coming back from that injury. I like Oklahoma State. I like the home team in that one as well. And then the late game, the only one in the conference to not feature a ranked team, Oklahoma and West Virginia. Man, this one's on ESPN News, like on purpose. They don't put a lot of Power 5 basketball on ESPN News. ESPN News is where you go to watch the first part of the game you're trying to watch on ESPN. They got preempted because ESPN still thinks college basketball games only take 2 hours. So you go over to ESPN News to watch the first 4 minutes of the Sunflower Showdown or whatever, and then it gets thrown back on regular ESPN. Oklahoma, West Virginia, and ESPN News. I don't know if it's too early to call that one a tournament elimination game. West Virginia's still got a really good resume in terms of the metrics because they played a good non-conference schedule. But the loser of this one drops to 2-8 in the league. And it's going to be really hard to win. You're going to have to win at that point 5 of 8 to get to even 7 Big 12 wins. A lot easier to win half of what you need, half of your games left, than it's going to be to win 5 of the remaining 8. So maybe that is a bit of a loser leaves town match between West Virginia and Oklahoma. Oklahoma at home, or rather West Virginia's at home. Oklahoma's lost 4 of their last 5. Feels like things are kind of going in the wrong direction for them. I think the Mountaineers pull that one out. So the only home team I'm not picking is Iowa State on Saturday. And I do that with a great deal of trepidation because I know how good Iowa State has been at Hilton Coliseum. And I know they can expect a boost for their role players. And if Jazz Kunch plays, all bets are off because I think that would give Iowa State an added size element that can make them a really hard matchup for Kansas. In a game, Iowa State really, have to win it, but it will feel like a must win. You don't want to go on 3-game losing streaks at this stage in the season. I just think Kansas has more good players. I'm basing my pick on very simple math. Kansas has more good players than Iowa State does. And I think they'll find a way. Some other predictions. So we got Mark on the YouTube comments. Hi, Mark. Thinks that K-State will pull it out against Texas in a close one. I'm of the same mind, like we talked about at the top of the hour. I think both of us are going with Kansas State at the Octagon on Saturday. Going to be a lower scoring game than the first meeting for sure, but I really think Kansas State at home right now is really tough, a really tough ask for any team in the league. Wanted to get to this. Joe Lunardi has his latest bracketology out, and Brendan and I were looking at this earlier. Joe Lunardi's got 8 teams in the Big 12. But it will be very fascinating to see how those teams get seeded because the desire is, of course, to try and keep teams that have played each other or that are in the same conference apart. But that gets harder to do when all of the teams deserve to be really high on the seed line. This is what Lunardi writes. Remember, the committee is required to place the first 4 teams from any conference in separate regions if those teams are seated on the top 4 lines. In other words, the likes of Kansas, Texas, Kansas State, and Iowa State will all be in different regions this year, regardless of geography. But at the moment, Baylor and TCU also fall within the top 4 seed lines, meaning the Big 12 will literally create some separation anxiety for the committee. 6 teams from the same conference seated no worse than number 4, if it happens, would be unprecedented. For the record, Lunardi has Kansas a number 1 seed in the East. That would be Madison Square Garden for the regional. Kansas State as a number 3 in the Midwest. Midwest, of course, at the T-Mobile Center. The other high seeds from the league, Texas would be a 2 seed going south. VCU would also be a 4 seed in the South region. Baylor would be a 4 seed in the Midwest region. Iowa State right now is a 4 seed in the West. And they're the only top 4 seed from the Big 12 that would go to Las Vegas. The other teams from the Big 12 that find themselves in the tournament as of now, again, according to Joe Lunardi, you've got 2 of them in play-in games. Oklahoma State and West Virginia are both in the last 4 in and would play for the right to be an 11 seed, essentially. And then you've also got, well, that's it. You got the 6 teams that are top 4 seeds, and you've got the 2 teams that are among the last 4 out. So that's the picture right now for the Big 12, and it makes it really interesting. How does that affect where you would send, for example, where would you send Kansas if you're trying to avoid having them in the same bracket as other top 4 seeds in the Big 12, but you also want to send them somewhere geographically appropriate? I think every Kansas fan, if they're a number 1 seed, would like to think they'd end up in the Midwest. But the way Lenardi has it broken down is Kansas right now would be the number 3 overall seed, or would they be the number 4 overall seed in this? Either way, they'd have them in the East. And Purdue is the number 1 overall seed going south to Louisville, and Alabama as the number 2 overall seed in Kansas City. And then the number 3 overall seed, I'm figuring this now, number 3 would be Houston. They'd go west to Las Vegas. So a chance that Kansas could be a 1 seed and end up having to go all the way clear out east if they advance. So it's going to be a tough job, and it's going to be really fascinating to see how it gets manipulated, because the thing the NCAA doesn't want to do, you don't want to misseed teams, right? You don't want to say, well, we'll just go ahead and we'll make TCU a 5, even if they deserve to be a 4 or a 3 when the dust settles. We're just going to make them a 5 so we don't have to worry about having to separate the regions. Now, I think for Iowa State, this is going to take care of itself. I think Iowa State's going to play itself out of a top 4 seed, but still, I don't think TCU and Baylor will. I think TCU and Baylor, along with Kansas, Kansas State, and Texas, will be top 4 seeds when Selection Sunday rolls around. So where does that extra top 4 seed go? And how does it affect where the other teams get seeded regionally? Just another bit of intrigue added to what has already been a fascinating and fun Big 12 season. Again, K-State taking on Texas. It's the 3 o'clock tip-off. It's on ESPN2. You can hear the game right here, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, with the pregame coverage starting at 2 o'clock. And I'll be there. I will be at Bramlage Coliseum, which means you get a full write-up at 580WIBW.com and a live reaction video after the players have spoken and after head coach Jerome Tang has spoken to the media. Stay tuned to our YouTube page for that, youtube.com/@SportsOn580. Subscribe to Sports on 580 WIBW on YouTube, and you can catch that video, or follow us on Twitter at @SportsOn580 on Twitter, and you'll see that video when I do indeed go live from the very top of Bramlage Coliseum once everything is done on Saturday evening. Speaking of done, the 4 o'clock hour is done here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, we got our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines, including the practice participation report for Super Bowl 57 and some other headlines from around the world of sports. Plus, a look at what you can watch this weekend with no football, or real football anyway, on television. That's all coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Final hour of the day, final hour of the week here on 580 Sports Talk. Hi, hello, and how are you? We've made it to the final hour of this Friday. Happy weekend. Weekend without football to you all. So glad to be with you. Dan Lucero, flying the bird solo at the moment. Brendan Dworzinski is locked and loaded at the House of Blues, Washburn Rural High School, for tonight's 580 Preps Friday night game of the week as Washburn Rural Junior Blues and Lady Blues take on Emporia. Dynamite matchups, particularly in the girls' game. Both Washburn Rural and Emporia State ranked. Rural in 6A, Emporia in 5A. So some great Centennial League basketball coming your way tonight here on 580 WIBW FM 104.9. And we are going to take you there as soon as they are ready to start pregame coverage. 5:40 or so, give or take. We will send you out there to Brendan and Larry Latimer. But in the meantime, in between time, we've got a 5 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, which means we've got your Blue Dot of Kansas headlines. We got to look ahead to the sports weekend, and we got a final word. At least all of that stuff coming your way. And if I did, in fact, speak it into existence, as one texter points out on the Big O Tires text line, that I may have exercised what he refers to, or what they refer to as the kissing cousin of the broadcaster's jinx, speaking into existence the possibility of JV overtime. If indeed that does happen, I don't know. I'll take more questions. We'll do that. We'll do that again. That was fun the one time that we had to do that when there was JV overtime. You can hit me up on the YouTube comments, on the YouTube stream, youtube.com/@sportson580. Subscribe to our YouTube page, and it doesn't cost you a dime, and you will always, when you go to YouTube, see our videos, what we've got going on and what we've got going live, like right now, 580 Sports Talk. And you can post in the YouTube comments if you are watching along. We appreciate everybody who is hanging out with us in the YouTube comments. We also, of course, will check out your texts on the Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. That's 785-272-9429. Your texts, your thoughts on what we're talking about here today on 580 Sports Talk. If you missed any of the show to this particular moment, the podcast page, 580WIBW.com. That's 580WIBW.com, the podcast link, and click on 580 Sports Talk. You can hear hour-by-hour breakdowns of the show. You can hear from our great guests. We had Matt Derrick on 3 o'clock hour today. You hear What Is Wrong With You. We crowned a weekly champion in the 4 o'clock hour. And anything else you might want to revisit, you can check it out at the podcast page, 580WIBW.com. And, of course, you can go back and watch the video archive as well. So not only can you hear what we say, you can see what hat we happen to be wearing as we said it. This is a current favorite of mine right now, the brim I've got on today. This is the old Maxie the Miner Denver Nuggets logo. Nuggets with another great win last night. Smacked the Warriors. I know Klay Thompson didn't play. And Draymond Green didn't either, I don't think. But I don't care. Nuggets won. So we're honoring them today with the hat. So we've got, again, some other things that we're going to get to this hour, a preview of the sports weekend. And by request of the Big O Tires text line, I might even throw out a lock or two for the weekend to come. I might just do it. It's a little tougher with college basketball because typically they don't put lines out more than 24 hours before the game. But we'll see what we can do. Maybe I'll throw you a little bit of I think the Mountain West schedule is active tonight. Maybe I'll throw you a lock from there, or the Big Ten or something like that. But yeah, we'll give you a lock of the weekend. Why not? We got that coming up. But we start this final hour of the show, as we always do, with the Blue Dot of Kansas headlines, brought to you by Blue Dot of Kansas. AC, heating, plumbing, drain cleaning. Check it all out with the Peak Performance Safety Check once a year, all for one low price. Visit blue.kansas.com to see what Blue Dot of Kansas can do for you. First headline of the day, the participation report for the Chiefs and the Eagles ahead of the weekend before Super Bowl 57. For the Kansas City Chiefs, the 4 players who did not practice today are the same 4 players who have not practiced all week. Wide receivers Mecole Hardman, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Kadarius Toney, and cornerback L'Jarius Sneed. Hardman is listed as doubtful. They actually put out a game status for this week. So if they had to play on Sunday, what would each player's status be? Mecole Hardman's status would be doubtful. It would be very unlikely that he would play if Super Bowl 57 were in 2 days. Smith-Schuster, Snead, and Toney, along with linebacker Willie Gay, who was limited for a third straight day, all have a questionable designation. Now, again, that would be questionable if the game were Sunday, not questionable for the actual game itself. Just something the NFL makes the teams do. So those are the injury designations for the Chiefs. Everybody else on the list was a full participant once again, just like they were on Thursday. That's Trey Smith, Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, Justin Watson, and Patrick Mahomes. None of those players have a game status designation. Again, what we heard from Matt Derrick earlier kind of tracks with what we've been hearing everywhere else throughout the week, that Mecole Hardman probably not going to be able to make it to Super Bowl game day. Kadarius Toney looking a little more likely than that. Juju, hard to say at this stage. L'Jarius Sneed is at least going through conditioning, which means he is progressing through the concussion protocol, but he is not yet cleared to return to practice. And certainly his presence will be of importance for the Chiefs for the Super Bowl. The Eagles do not have anybody with a listed game status. They are just listing a bunch of players either not practicing or just limited due to rest. The following players were limited due to rest today: James Bradbury, A.J. Brown, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, Isaac Sumalo, Darius Slay, and Josh Sweat. That's a bunch of really, really good players who essentially got a half-day work today. The players who did not practice for the Chiefs today were the same who did not practice all week due to injuries and rest. Avonte Maddox is the most interesting one to note here because there actually was a new development there. Maddox has been dealing with a toe injury, missed a lot of action in the second half of the season for the Eagles. He was in a walking boot today. So either the Eagles are being super cautious or maybe Maddox tweaked something over the course of the NFC Championship game, and maybe he is a doubt, although no game status, the suggestion being that the Eagles feel like if there were a game on Sunday that Maddox could play. But wasn't a walking boot today, so that is worth noting. He was DNP today, along with Robert Quinn, backup center Cam Jurgens, tackle Lane Johnson, and guard Landon Dickerson. That is your participation report for today, the final day before the weekend before Super Bowl 57. Another Chiefs note of much less importance, but also very humorous, is that one particular Chiefs fan might get to watch Super Bowl 57 because Chiefsaholics bail has gone down. We have an update from Jonathan Cooper from News on 6, the CBS affiliate in Tulsa. A Tulsa County judge has lowered the bond of Xavier Babudar from $200,000 to $80,000. Babudar, of course, the man better known on Twitter as Chiefsaholic. He's been in jail since December after he robbed a Bixby, Oklahoma bank on his way to see the Chiefs play the Texans in Houston. Allegedly. The allegedly is still in the story. He hasn't been convicted yet, but come on. So bail down to $80,000. We know Xavier likes himself a taste at the window and probably has a couple of Patrick Mahomes MVP bets. What if some of those come good and all of a sudden Xavier's got an extra $80,000 in the bank come Thursday after the NFL honors when those Mahomes props pay out? What if Mahomes winning the MVP gets Chiefsaholic out of jail? That would be at least a little bit funny to me. Anyhow, an update on a previous What Is Wrong With You monthly champion. Chiefsaholics bail now at a much more reachable $80,000. So I don't know how reachable it really is for a guy who, again, was robbing banks allegedly. I shouldn't use the plural. I should definitely say allegedly if I use the plural. We know about the one. So that's what's happening with Chiefsaholic. I know you were all waiting with bated breath for a Chiefsaholic update. I'm very proud that I was able to produce that for you. Anyhow, let's keep it moving on the blue dot of Kansas headlines. Let's keep it local. It was made official today. The Kansas City Royals and pitcher Zach Greinke have finalized their contract for the 2023 season. It's an $8.5 million pact for the 39-year-old right-hander, including up to $7.5 million in performance bonuses. If you add that together, that could come out to about $16 million. He made $13 million last year with the Royals. He was just 3-9, but he had a 3.68 earned run average. To make room on the 40-man roster, the Royals designated left-handed reliever A.J. Masevich for assignment. So Masevich no longer on the 40-man. Zach Greinke is officially back. Also back, powder blue pants by popular demand. The Royals today released on Twitter a video and a Photoshop that implies that on opening day of 2023, the Royals will be sporting a fan favorite look, powder blue pants with their powder blue jersey tops. The Royals, of course, have had some powder blue tops off and on in the last decade or so, but have never brought back the pants. There are other teams in the league that have been bold enough to wear powder blue pants with powder blue tops, like the Rangers and the Blue Jays. But the Royals had not brought them back. However, they are bending to the will of their fans, and they are going to bring back the powder blue pants with the powder blue tops. I think it's a sharp look. I've always thought it was the Royals' best look, but I think they should go even further. I don't want buttons on these jerseys. I don't want belts on these jerseys. I want the true 1970s, 1980s powder blue look. I want the pullover tops, and I want the no belt pants, the ones with just like a striped pattern on them where you don't need a belt. I don't want buttons. I want pullovers, and I don't want belts. I just want a pattern. I want them out there really looking like UL Washington. I want these guys out there. I want Bobby Witt to take the field on opening day, and he's dressed like Freddie Patek. I want Zach Greinke to toe the slab, or Brady Singer, whoever it is, and he's pawing around in the dirt, and he's wearing the same duds as Larry Gura and Denny Leonard. I want Scott Barlow to come out of the pen in the ninth, and he's looking like Dan Quisenberry. Look, you can't bring the good old days back from a winning perspective, at least this year. That's not really within the realm of possibility for these Royals. You may as well bring them back visually, right? And bring them back all the way. Everybody loves a throwback. So the Powder Blues are back. We have one vote in support of that from the 785 on the Big O Tires text line. Good. Bring back the 70s and the 80s again. Vance on the YouTube comments said he had to take a cold shower when he heard about the powder blue. It is. It's exciting for a certain generation of Royals fan, particularly, I'm sure. This would appear to be a vote not in favor of the return of the throwbacks from the 913 on the Big O Tires text line. Do you want dad shoes too? Yeah, sure. Bring back the old cleats. Bring back the monochrome one color cleats or the white shoes. I'm a big believer that the Oakland Athletics should never have stopped wearing white cleats. Baseball uniforms, baseball fashion peaked in like 1981, maybe even a couple of years before that. I want pullovers. I don't want belts. If the White Sox see fit, I want them to bring back the shorts. Bring back the shorts. Bring back those big goofy collars that they used to wear. That was the pinnacle of high fashion in baseball, the 70s. Like when Cleveland had the all red. Cleveland had the all red, and Boog Powell was at the end of his career, and he was out there in that Cleveland Indians uniform looking like a swollen blood vessel, just red on red. Yeah, those were the days. Mutton chops. Damn right, 913. More players need mutton chops. Kerry Lightenberg tried to bring those back a few years ago with the Atlanta Braves. I say a few years ago. That's like the late 90s. That is not a few years ago. I have clearly lost the concept of time over time. But yeah, we got to bring the mutton chops back. I need somebody from the Royals bullpen stomping around the mound, in the powder blues with the mutton chops, like the Mad Hungarian, Al Rabowski. That's what I need. The whole season should be a tribute to the 70s Royals. Visually, if not like in terms of like winning their division and playing in the playoffs. Yeah, there we go. From the 785. Get a reliever out there with Raleigh Fingers' mustache. Yes. What's his name? The guy pitched for the Royals. Mangden. Daniel Mangden tried to bring that back. Daniel Mangden was out there with the waxed mustache. Is he still in the Royals organization? He's not in the 40, man. Hey, Royals need to bring him back. Yes, another one from the 785. Bring back the high water pants with stirrups. Listen, when I played ball, I was a stirrup guy. I was a high pants, cuffs just below the knees with the stirrups. I looked, and this is like the early 2000s. But I was not a big like pajama baseball pant guy. I was big on the stirrups. I think that you look like a ball player when you wear stirrups. I don't think you look like a ball player when your pants are cuffed around like they're looped underneath your back cleat. To me, that's sloppy. I've always thought that looks sloppy. You want to look like a ball player? Show me some sock. We have resounding support for stirrups on the Big O Tires text line. I'm very, very proud to see that. I'm excited that we have this much love for the stirrups on the Big O Tires text line. Got to bring them back. Got to bring them back very strongly. Speaking of uniforms, we have another question here, another 785 texter here from the Big O Tires text line. What do you think about the Chiefs outfit for the Super Bowl? Chiefs are going to go white on red. I don't know if you've seen this. The Eagles are the designated home team, so they got to choose. They're going to wear their green tops, and so the Chiefs are going to wear white tops. I'm assuming then that the Eagles are going to wear green with white pants because the Chiefs are wearing their red pants. So that's my assumption, but it will be the white on red for the Chiefs. I know a lot of fans really like the white on white. I can't say I'm a big fan of the white on white. I don't love like the monochrome. Like you got to have something to really break up the monochrome if you're going to do it. So that's never been my favorite look in football. So white on red, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. When you win, it's whatever you win in that looks the best, right? So those are my opinions on the white on red look. See if there's anything else worth discussing on the Big O Tires, or rather on the Blue Dot of Kansas headlines. Blue Dot of Kansas, sponsor of our headlines segment. Real quick, a follow-up, something that we discussed yesterday regarding Oklahoma and Texas and the Big 12 conference meetings. Oklahoma and Texas, of course, head to the SEC. They would like very much to get out of Dodge as fast as they can. That doesn't look like that's going to happen. According to Pete Thamel from ESPN, the negotiations for Oklahoma and Texas to leave the Big 12 a year early and join the SEC in 2024 have stalled, and a deal is not expected to come to fruition. After weeks of negotiations, Texas and Oklahoma are still slated to join the SEC in 2025. Sources say the parties couldn't come to terms amid a complex negotiation involving two schools, one conference, and two networks. ESPN and Fox are playing hardball here. Sources said the sides couldn't agree on how to create equitable value for what Fox would lose in 2024, the equivalent of 7 football games featuring Oklahoma and Texas that command premium advertising. The negotiations heated up over the past few days with the Big 12 meetings late this week, doubling as an unofficial deadline to get a deal done. The timeline in play leaves some ambiguity, but the strong expectation remains that Oklahoma and Texas will play in the 14-team Big 12 in 2023 and 2024. So really, ESPN is totally fine because they've got SEC rights. They're totally fine with Oklahoma and Texas leaving early, going to the SEC. But it's Fox that is playing hardball. Fox is the hero or the villain, depending on how you look at that. I don't know what the popular opinion is on this, whether or not people want Oklahoma and Texas to stick around for that other year as some form of punishment, or whether people would just as soon have them gone and say good riddance. I'm not exactly sure what the common opinion is on that, what the consensus opinion is on that from other Big 12 fans. But it does really sound like this is a network decision. And there's just no way to make it good for Fox financially to lose those Oklahoma and Texas games when they leave for the SEC. So score one for Fox, I guess. Though there is this from Vance in the YouTube comments. You have to put up that annoying Boomer Sooner song for 2 more years. Yeah, there's that. There's that. I can understand the compulsion to be done hearing that song. I get that. K-State doesn't play him this year in football. So if you're a K-Stater, you can watch your team schedule and you don't ever have to hear that song. Although usually you hear that song, if you're K-State, that's good because K-State's kind of owned Oklahoma in recent years. Maybe you still want them on the schedule moving forward. Anyhow, that's going to do it for our Blue Dot of Kansas headlines. Again, sponsored by Blue Dot of Kansas. You can find them on the web, blue.kansas.com. See what they can do for your home, for your AC, for your furnace, for your plumbing. blue.kansas.com. We're going to take a quick break here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back on the other side, a look ahead to a sports weekend without football. What will it look like for you? I've got some suggestions. We'll talk about them next here on 580 Sports Talk. Told you that was a short break. 5:29 here on 580 Sports Talk. Again, we are taking you up to the start of our high school basketball coverage tonight. Our 580 Preps game of the week, Centennial League action from Washburn Rural High School. The Junior Blues and the Lady Blues welcoming the Emporia Spartans to town. So we have got that basketball coming up shortly, I am told. So we will be sending you out and joining Brendan Dworzinski and the coach, Larry Latimer, here very shortly. A look ahead to the sports weekend. Look, there are the Pro Bowl games that are on, and I don't want to talk about those. I don't have any interest in that. That doesn't light my fire. I can't bring myself to care about kick-tack-toe or the coolest catch or more dodgeball or flag football. I can't care about it. I can't. But if it's your thing, I'm not here to yuck your yum. So that's on Sunday. The NHL All-Star game is tomorrow. I think the skills contest is tonight. And then the actual All-Star game is tomorrow. 3 Avalanche in the game. That's my team. Right? And that's my team. I got, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, Nate McKinnon in the All-Star game. That's pretty cool. Maybe I'll check that out. Maybe I'll check out the skills competition tonight. I don't know. There's some good college basketball, though, on Saturday, and it's wild. So I was going through the list. of games. Like, what are the big college basketball games on Saturday? And, of course, you're looking for the big games. You look at, like, the top 25, right? And you see, oh, hey, number 1 Purdue's at number 21 Indiana. Great rivalry, in-state rivalry. That should be a really good game. That's 3 p.m. Saturday. Conflicts with K-State. You might need 2 screens if you're wanting to watch a K-State game and you want to keep tabs on the number 1 team in the country and the likely player of the year in Zach Edey. Gonzaga St. Mary's for the late night crowd. That's a 9:30 tip-off on Saturday. Those are 2 ranked teams. It's always fun when those 2 West Coast Conference teams tip off. By the way, St. Mary's is a 4.5-point favorite in that game. I wonder how many times Gonzaga has been an underdog of that many points in a West Coast Conference game in the last decade. I don't wager it's been many. But right now, per our friends at FanDuel, St. Mary's is a 4.5-point favorite for that game on Saturday night. But anyway, I'm looking for big college basketball games. And like some of the best Pac-12 teams kind of play bummy teams. There should be some blowouts in the Pac-12 this week. And then I remembered Duke plays North Carolina on Saturday. And that game is relevant by virtue of it being Duke and North Carolina. But is it relevant to the power structure of college basketball? No, it's really not. Like, neither team is all that good. Neither team is ranked right now in the top 25. It's fascinating that that's where we're at with Duke and North Carolina, that's where both of those teams are. Now, I think North Carolina will play well down the stretch. They got a lot of veterans. I think they'll figure some things out. When people said they was the number 1 team in the country, it was preposterous when the season began, and nothing like that. But they'll play good ball. They'll be a team you don't want to see when the tournament rolls around. And Duke just has had some bad luck with their freshmen. 2 really talented freshmen, Derek Lively Jr. and Derek Whitehead, that Duke has, for varying reasons of injury and ineffectiveness, just haven't gotten a lot out of those guys. But it is just wild that this is the first Duke North Carolina game post Coach K, and we're in year 2 without Roy Williams, and it's just on the schedule, just another game. How many times has that been the case? Like, in my lifetime, how many times? And I'm not as old as some of you YouTube commenters think I am, but I've been around a while, and I can't recall a Duke North Carolina game that had less juice than this one. It's really, really fascinating. By the way, our friends at FanDuel make Duke a 3.5-point home favorite in that game. Also, you got the NASCAR, the Clash of the Coliseum, I think, is this weekend. Vance pointing that one out to me. The Clash at the Coliseum is this weekend, I believe. And that's a fun event. That is a cool event. Where they race at the Los Angeles Coliseum. That is Saturday night. I don't remember that being a night race last year. I thought they ran that during the day last year. Maybe I'm wrong. I very well could be wrong. But the fact that it's I guess it's not really a night race. It's 8 Eastern, but that's 5 Pacific, so you still have some daylight there. But still, that'll be a cool setting for the Clash at the Coliseum. Something else you could perhaps check out on a Saturday. You asked for one. I'm going to give you one. A lock of the weekend. Again, all lines from FanDuel, sportsbook.fanduel.com. I'm going to give you this as my lock for the weekend. Right now, Texas and Kansas State is virtually a pick 'em. Kansas State, right this second, is favored by 0.5 point. Basically a pick 'em. K-State and Texas. That's how close Vegas makes these two teams. I think Kansas State is going to win the game. I think the home court advantage will be crucial in Kansas State winning that battle of top 10 teams. So if you're inclined, K-State right now, 0.5 point favorite. Or there's less juice on the money line right now for K-State, -104 instead of -106 on the point spread. So the prudent play right now, K-State on the money line. That is going to be my lock. Lock of the week. They used to do on SVP, Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That was the best. I miss those segments. Anyhow, I'm going to take one more very short break, come back with a final word, and we will wrap up 580 Sports Talk right after this. Wrapping up with the final word here on 580 Sports Talk. We are just moments away from throwing things out to Brendan Dworzinski and Larry Latimer for the 580 Preps Friday night game of the week on the hardwood. Washburn Rural and Emporia from the House of Blues here in Topeka. Should be some outstanding Centennial League basketball tonight. We hope that you stick around with us tonight here on 580 WIBW and on FM 104.9 to check that out with us. Final word for me on today's program. We're going to really dig in to the Super Bowl next week. Obviously, it will be game week. We'll know a little bit more about the Chiefs' injury situation. We'll have a little bit of a better idea about the Eagles' injury situation, because I think Landon Dickerson and Lane Johnson's injuries and Avonte Maddox's injuries, I think they do bear watching as we get closer and closer, because those are three pretty important players. We know Lane Johnson's groin is torn, and that's not going to heal. But Avonte Maddox being at full health is a big deal. And Landon Dickerson being at full health for them would be a very big deal. So, and then obviously the Chiefs have some concerns at wide receiver, have some concerns as it pertains to L'Jarius Sneed. So those things are all going to evolve, and we'll have much more to talk about next week. We'll have some great guests, our usual guests, and so on. And we'll get more and more into the game. But I just can't shake the feeling here, a week and change out from Super Bowl 57, that much like Super Bowl 54, if this game comes down to which quarterback can make a play at the end to win it, that's the scenario the Chiefs want to be in 10 times out of 10. If this game becomes about whether or not Patrick Mahomes can make more plays than Jalen Hurts, the Chiefs are going to win that game. And that's not me being disrespectful to Jalen Hurts. I just don't believe he's quite there yet. And I think the injury to his shoulder has affected the Philadelphia passing game in such a way that he's not going to be quite there yet. So for me, that will be kind of the big talking point as we round the corner and we get through this football-less weekend with some great Big 12 basketball on deck for Saturday, and we start really digging into Eagles Chiefs next week. That will be the through line with everything I look at from this game. How can the Chiefs make it about their guy versus Philadelphia's guy under center? Because that's the way the Chiefs win a second title in 4 years. That's going to wrap up this edition of 580 Sports Talk. We'll take a quick break, and we will throw it out to Brendan and Larry at the House of Blues at Washburn Rural High School for some high school hoops. For Brendan Dworzinski, I'm Dan Lucero. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. Appreciate every single one of you. Hope you have a great weekend, a safe weekend, and we'll talk to you on Monday from 3 to 6 here on 580 Sports Talk.